Today, I'd like to welcome Dr. Cheryl Miller. What a fascinating, powerful, and vibrant woman, and what a rich and meaningful conversation we had. Cheryl is an American graphic designer, a Christian minister, an artist, a writer, a theologian, and a decolonizing historian. She shared with me her life story and how she was bound to become a designer, and also how she was shaped by her four grandparents and the times in which she lived, the time of the American Civil Rights Movement and of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Now, Cheryl's work and her research is really pioneering. Through looking back at her own family, she uncovered how the ideas, designs, craftsmanship, workmanship, artisanry of the tragic period of slavery is still an intrinsic part of design today. But Cheryl is not just focused on the past and on bringing justice to her and other people's ancestors. Oh, by the way, please go pre order her upcoming book called Here, We the Black Designers. Cheryl has also been educating designers for decades. When Cheryl talks about the work that she does with students today, her eyes really do light up. And her role and how she sees her role of giving space and allowing students to discover what design means to them is truly inspiring. And in Cheryl's own words, we are not ready for tomorrow's designers. Enjoy this episode of Think with my wonderful guest, Dr. Cheryl Miller. Dr. Cheryl Miller, welcome to Think.
Well, listen, thank you so much for having me. Eric, I'm so honored to be here.
I'm the one who's honored to have you as my guest. You are an American graphic designer, a Christian minister, a writer, an artist, a theologian, and decolonizing historian.
Yeah,
Amongst your many activities and works, you're known for your contributions to racial and gender equality in the graphic design field and establishing one of the first Black women owned design firms in New York City in 1984.
that's right.
According to Dory Tunstall, who I had an amazing conversation with, and she told me that I had to talk to you. You are the grand dame of design.
They tell me.
So as we start our conversation today and explore your thoughts, your life experiences, what would you like my listeners to know about you?
um, I think what I want to leave is that I really did my best at this, and I've been at it 50 years. It was really a dream from the time I was 30, 3 years old, 3 years old, to be an artist. I didn't know that it would lead me um, to these paths of righteousness and social design justice. Um, but I have a motto that I sign my books with and I kind of inspire with. Living your life is your story. Living your life for others is your legacy. And I got involved with um, designing legacy work much earlier um, than I had expected. It's been a lifetime trailblazing endeavor, um, and I've given my whole heart to it. And so I have a quote that I recently made at Rhode Island School of Design's commencement. I did my best so that you all could do better.
Hmm.
And so I've been on the highways and byways of this for a while, and there's not much about it that I don't know, um, except where we're all going and where I'm going with it in the future. But where I've been, um, recently on my Instagram account, I put up a graphic of broadcast sign off symbol of the 50s. Television used to sign off at 12 o'clock. Okay. And a little graphic would come up. And people always ask me, well, what inspired you? And I said, well, it starts with my mom trying to get me to go to bed, and the little circle, the circle comes up and says, lights out. So these are some early impressions of graphics, actually broadcast television. and new technology from radio to uh, television, like the kids are on the iPad, moving from cable to streaming and beyond, VR and everything else. Believe it or not, Eric, I started in this business when magic markers were invented, and there were 8 in a box, and they were called magic markers.
Wow.
Right. I was taught with a wooden T square, charcoal, gouache, which was kind of like this
Gouache.
gouache.
Yeah.
I was trained as an old school. Uh, I always use these as my. I always have props. This was my Adobe Illustrator. Yeah, we're trying to. I have so many artifacts from um, college years in my studio. Design doesn't change; technology does, and that's what keeps you pertinent.
Mm. Oh, there's so much I want to ask you, and I'm glad that we have the chance to have this conversation.
Sure.
I mean, it starts at the age of 3,
Yes.
and my mom, who got a sneak peek of my conversation with Dory, after she listened, she said, "Eric," she said, "just do me a favor for your next guest." My mom is in her 70s. She's like, I don't know what design is or decolonizing design is. Can you ask so that even someone like myself can get a bit of context so that I understand the rest of the conversation better?" And I think that's a fair question. Your interest for design started at the age of 3.
Yeah.
Can you give us some knowledge as to what is design? I know it's a very broad question to ask. What is design, and what was it like for you at the age of 3, seeing and beyond, seeing what was on television and the graphic part, and your experience in society at that time, and how, yeah, that led you to want to actually work or to design and to be an artist?
Well, design came in a pivotal point. So early on, you just want to draw and paint. I am a uh, pre-civil rights, civil rights, post-civil rights coming of age kid. Okay,
Hmm.
I was born 1952, which makes me your mom's age. Okay, and it was transitional to a lot of technology. Radio to television was the big technological move. Um, Whole food to processed foods. McDonald's and Kentucky Fried all showed up, and they sugarized cornflakes and everything else. And now we have all other kinds of issues because of that. Um, um, you know, um, I had a Dory in her book says uh, indigenous first.
Hmm.
And I have a very, 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 very unique BIPOC indigenous story, which put me being exposed to design. I don't know anything else. And
Hmm.
I have four grandparents, four different races, but it's my mother's heritage that has brought the conversation of my work to the table of decolonizing graphic design history. Here, let me show you this. I think it's called a Krennic bowl. I have to, it's yeah. This bowl and I are the same age. It's timeless. It's endless. It won design award 1953, 1952. I think it's called a Krennic. You can
I'll look it up
you can look it up.
definitely. And
Look it up for me. That's what it's called. But um, this bowl is high end design. Okay, this was my mom's kitchen. Yeah, this was my mom's kitchen bowl. She was a seamstress and a nurse, and her thimbles and junk and prescriptions and pennies and loose things. This was on my kitchen table. Okay, who grows up with a high end? This is Danish. I believe it's Danish. Who grows up with this stuff? Okay, I was born in Washington D.C. My home was full of Danish home goods and Scandinavian home goods because my mother is I'm an ancestral indigenous Virgin Islander. Okay, Um, my grandmother was an indigenous Danish slash Creole Ghanaian woman in the Danish West Indies when the United States bought the islands in 1917. She's a derivative work of the Ghanaian slave trade. So
Hmm.
she's mixed by the culture of the Ghanaian slave trade and Denmark um, stealing Africans and selling them. Okay, and the islands, all those islands have colonizers who partnered with African kings. My story is the Danish Ghanaian slave trade. So culturally, um, my maternal family is Danish West Indian, which puts a lot of Scandinavian and Danish design in the marketplace, along with a lot of Afro Caribbean sounds, smells, uh, visuals, um, and it's this influence that was in my house. My grandmother was a retailer and of perfume, china, flatware, home goods, high end, and they used the mixed race women um, on Main Street to make uh, the really the Scandinavian cruise ships um, make those who are coming in from Europe comfortable. And so the mixed race women were used for sales. And so I got exposed to, like, this is one of my artifacts from her. This is a beautiful, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her ring.
Okay.
And it's timeless. I mean, there's nothing there, it's timeless. It's timeless design. Okay. And so my grandmother's hand taking mine, I grew up with this ring, and I'm like, oh, before you go, you're gonna give me that ring. And so it's the high end part of um, Scandinavian design with a dominant to Danish design. Um, my eye attracted that versus the more traditional expressions of blue and white traditional. So the Danish design has two spins. Okay. And so it can be that traditional blue and white swirly China stuff, or it can be high end angst. So uh, my home was full of home furnishings, glasses, plates, um, bowls, all kinds of things that were Denmark driven in design history and story. My stuff needs to go back to Denmark, actually. I have a collection. And my grandmother would send um, boxes monthly, if not weekly, with these items to get them off of the island to preserve them from the hurricane.
Hmm.
And so that, therefore, I have a collection, and I grew up with this. But I didn't know what I was growing up with until I got to art school. I just thought it was mom's stuff in her house and granny sending up junk. I didn't think much about it. I'm like, okay. And I tell you what, can you flip a little bit? I can't see you at all. I
Yeah, it's
see
I
your
can a
nose.
little bit.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry about that.
yeah.
Let me try this because I've got my phone camera up top,
Okay,
which is filming. So
all right.
there, maybe.
Yeah, I can see your eyes. I'm talking to your mustache.
Yeah.
um, so these influences, so the high-end Danish stuff, the other stuff was coming in too, but the home goods, the jewelry, she was a perfumier, perfume bottles from France, all kinds of things. Anything that you could see in a island duty-free walkway Main Street, any island, okay, that's coming in from Europe to sell to everyone who's coming in off back then it was Pan Am, had a little prop flight, or the boats. The whole the it wasn't Carnival Cruise. So just imagine uh, high-end uh, cruise liners docking in to the Caribbean. Um, so I became exposed to these. Yeah, even the perfume bottles. She was a perfumier. She started in a perfume shop. So she regularly would send boxes. She was a buyer, so we don't have a complete set of anything. Salespeople would come and give her like 3 out of 8, you know, 4 out of 6. They're trying to get her to buy for the store. So all these little trinkets she would get off island to preserve so that they wouldn't be subject to a hurricane. And so my house was full of this. And uniquely, she would wrap precious items. Okay, so if you imagine crystal um, and perfume bottles, she would wrap with the newspapers, the Virgin Island Daily News,
Ah,
and in
of
that
the time.
of the time. So right. So in there is a lot of visual Afro Caribbean, okay, iconography, illustrations, typography. She would send her my mother cookbooks. My mother had all kinds of island cookbooks and hymn books, church books that are picking up this blend of really Ghanaian slave inspired. It's DNA that's coming into Afro Caribbean iconography. So the house is coming with, Granny would send travel. You get off the plane, in St. Thomas, and the first thing you get is a travel log, newspaper. You get a little, pina colada thing, whatever whiskey is being promoted. Okay, whatever rum is being promoted. These are all the things that go with island life and tourism, and she would send all of this stuff, and she would wrap the Danish delicacies, cheese and the crystal. She would wrap in the current newspapers or the travel maps. A lot of travel maps. And so I would get a blend of really the graphics being done Afro Caribbean that are Ghanaian and Danish inspired. And so this is my visual DNA at my mother's kitchen. She would read the newspapers that wrapped up the stuff. When the boxes came in, it was always exciting to see what Granny would send. And Granny would send. I have a whole collection of childhood um, Danish jewelry, um, and she would always send me a piece of jewelry and um, mom all this stuff that she wanted to preserve from the hurricane. And these were my impressions. I began the place that I took myself seriously was by the time I got 10. Uh, when I was 10, I was a Girl Scout. And kind of growing up, I'm no shame in my game. I grew up highbrow Negro. My dad had every year he had a Cadillac. I don't know anything but riding in the back of a Cadillac. So every other year he bought a Cadillac. Okay, we just had it that way. My dad was quite a character, and taught me everything he knew, and really, he gave me a charge. He says, "Cheryl, I'm gonna support you in anything you do. Just if you do it, be the best." So I hope Dad's
Hmm.
best. I don't know whether I'm the best, but I tried my best, which is always my motto. So I hope he's happy looking down that I at least made a good attempt at it. But my parents met in Washington D.C. My mom came up to college, and my father was uniquely also indigenous mixed. He's My father was my paternal lineage is my father was white and Native American, and my grandmother was African American.
Hmm.
Um, and my mom came up to study nursing, and I the other point is I'm part Filipino. He said, how'd that happen? Well, the Germans bought, the Germans wanted to buy the islands, World War One, and the United States outbid them. And my research discovered that Woodrow Wilson and I believe the Secretary of the Navy, Josiah Daniels, were really uh, administrative racist, and they segregated all the armed services and removed the colored servicemen out of the armed services, and they looked to the Filipinos to to replace them. So when the boats came in at what we call Transfer Day, March 31st, um, they passed the check, signed, lowered the flag, Danish flag, up goes the American flag. The little Filipino men um, were in the executive boats that came in to establish democracy. And so my grandfather came in from Cavite, um, and he was promised naturalization. And my grandmother and her girlfriends worked, they were what they called donut dollies, and they worked the USO. The Americans are coming, the Americans are coming. Oh, so she married one. And so I'm a quarter Filipino. My mother was half Filipino, but she looked 100% a Filipino woman. And she left Ireland to and went to Howard to go to nursing school, and she found my dad there, who was my family is fourth or fifth generation Washingtonian, and we came up. His family came up from Fauquier County, which is Confederate land, Civil War land, and so he's mixed white and American Indian, and I have one African American grandmother, his mother. My paternal grandmother is African American. So out of this whole story, I have one pure African American grandparent.
So,
So with all of that in America, one drop in the civil rights made me a black woman.
I have to ask. I mean, for most of us, design, we don't see what we don't know what we see. Everything for a non-design oriented person, and maybe I'm generalizing, and people listening will think, well, that doesn't apply to them, but we think things are just functional. But in actuality, design incorporates the thinking of the time, the power structures of the time, just from the resources that are available, that are used from different countries. So as you went into design and design school, and then you started to learn about design formally and for yourself, and you started looking at all the things that you had in your house
I was
coming from all.
I was able to recognize them.
Mhm. And what was your experience then of those same objects, and did that have an influence
Yeah,
on your design direction,
yeah, and one
seeing that? Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And another great major piece, I was sharing that where all of it turned pivotal, or two places it turned pivotal when I started taking myself seriously. My Girl Scout house. Okay, I was a Girl Scout. I won my first award. I went to Girl Scout meeting, and um, the Girl Scout leader said, "We're going to have an art contest, and whoever wins, um, your picture will be framed, and you'll be on a in the Washington Post." Um, Judge Marjorie Lawson is a lover of the Girl Scouts. We're going to um, in your up. It was a ceremony to become a Girl Scout. We're going to celebrate her and give her what whoever wins the award. We had My father had encyclopedias for us, and so there was no Google or anything, and I was too young to truck off to the library. But I had a World Book Encyclopedia. I got two books: A for artists, P for painting. When I opened the P, when I opened the P, I found Picasso, and my eye went to Picasso, and I knocked off a violin. I knocked off a violin in a fruit basket, and I won the award. So the first thing, my eye out of a whole book of art that I'm going through, a whole book of P for painting, my
Hmm.
eye goes finds Picasso in the P book. I must have had a heart attack, man. I went to Barcelona into the Picasso Museum and I saw the original. I was like, oh, that's my Girl Scout painting. Oh, and so when I won the award, I said, oh my goodness, Cheryl. But take that with my Girl Scout house. My
Hmm.
Girl Scout house, now in my research, I did not know then what I know now, um, was built by Robert Madison, the first African American um, architect out of Chicago, who was Walter Gropius trained. He went to Harvard.
Okay.
And um, in in Washington, um, there's just a prominent side of African American community. There really is. Everybody's got a Cadillac. So my Girl Scout house was a Cadillac house. Okay, it was. The house was custom built for Dr. Jack and Sarah White, and Dr. Jack White was a prominent surgeon at Howard University. So my Girl Scout home was mid-century in essence. Walter Gropius inspired by this prominent black architect from Chicago, built this home that every Saturday I am in mid-century Walter Gropius Girl Scout house.
Hmm.
And it was furnished that way too. So everything mid-century. Okay. And so now imagine now I'm a kid. I got this stuff at home. I have this mid-century Danish stuff from home. I win an award. I knock off Picasso. Out of everybody, I didn't do Leonardo. I didn't. I didn't do Michelangelo. He went to Picasso, and I'm making violin and cubist fruit. I win an award, and I later find in my research I'm in a Walter Gropius inspired mid-century
Hmm.
home built by one of the first black architects in Chicago because the Girl Scout house had money to build one. So you put all that together as a kid, and I got recruited to RISD out of high school. Right.
And this is for my audience. This is a design, an art school, a
Oh,
design school in there.
Rhode Island School of Design.
Okay.
Okay. And right after they killed Martin Luther King, and all of the schools, Ivy schools, Northeast Corridor schools, really came looking for those most likely to succeed. And I got recruited to Rhode Island School of Design, and so I had completed this trajectory of being raised in DC. There's so much in Washington, the museums, the galleries. At the time, it was the Corcoran School of Art. I mean, it's just an art town. And so I had all of these influences. Um, and I started college touring as a junior the year that Martin Luther King was assassinated. And I got recruited to RISD. And specifically, this is a pivotal point for me. I made it a year there. My father died. By Thanksgiving, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I came home freshman year for Thanksgiving. They told me he only had 10 months to live. So, I spent my freshman year knowing that my father was going to pass. And then summer, I went home. He was evaporating. By the time I got home, he was on death watch. He's on his, yeah, he was going on yonder. And um, he did expire two weeks before I was to go back to Providence, and so my family's from DC. The deans talked to each other, and then I transferred to Maryland Institute College of Art. When I got there, all as far as I know, top ranked art schools in America, everybody starts with freshman foundation, and then sophomore year you make your decision. I had gone to RISD to paint, and I had completed freshman foundation, which gives you a sampling of everything.
Okay.
When I got to Micah on that pivot, um, I had to pick a major. And I said, well, Cheryl, you can paint. You'll always paint. Painting is painting. The only way to paint is to paint. Yeah, that's it. You want to paint? Paint. Okay. There's nobody going to stop you from that. A Yale MFA, doesn't mean, it doesn't mean anything, To paint is to paint. And so I said, sure, you can paint. So paint. You better take your father's college money that he left you and be able to take care of yourself. So I
Hmm.
made where I would have, if I'd gone to RISD, I would have gone into painting. I got down there, you know, with a fresh inheritance of college money, and I said, "Sure, you better study commercial art, applied art, graphic design, something that's going to help you." So I got in. That's where I began to study. In the minute, so I started the design program right from the beginning, where you're supposed to, and all the way through the journey of the canonical design history courses, the general curriculum for studying design, everything. I mean, nothing has changed with design except the technology. It really hasn't. Um, I began to see the explanation. I saw that I was a designer. I saw my inclination. I saw, well, Cheryl, out of all of the books, you picked Picasso. Well, what else would you know? What else would you know?
Hmm.
But a
The bowl.
bowl,
A Danish
a
bowl.
Danish bowl. Okay, a square. A minimalist modernist bowl. What else would you know? Okay, and so here we are, and I guess kept going and going. But what I didn't know was this tension in the text. That's what we call
Hmm.
theologians. We call tension in the text.
Yep.
Yeah, when we read scriptures and stuff doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, what's the tension in the story? What's the contrast? What's the problem? What's the pull? Well, I didn't know the whole thing was racist at the time. I didn't know how the culture of art and design had plopped on top and was integral in a part of America's story of civil rights movement, Jim Crow laws, and I didn't know it was such a big thing. I had no idea. I went in blindly. Can I just start? Uh, can I just go to college to learn how to do art, draw and paint, please? I didn't know there was.
Hmm.
I didn't know there was drama. And so to decolonize, to answer the question, to decolonize for me is doing everything I can do now to first off document my story. My story is footnoted crazy. It's not oral tradition. I have a book coming out. Please promote it for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, here it's called Here, where the Black designers are. It's a full historical memoir. I'm a memoirist, but I don't write without footnotes. So I track the history of uh, the Black graphic designer, really coming off of my boat from Ghana. I'm able, and I'm indigenous, and my citations, my footnotes. I show you the slave artisan is the first um, Black graphic arts practitioner as juxtaposed to the technology of the era. Okay, which would be first woodcuts and things for papers out of the colonial colonizer newspapers. So all of my work, the inspiration where Dory says indigenous first, the first thing I did in my journey for being a decolonizing historian um, is to unpack my own indigenous self, which is very,
Hmm.
very, very unique and very well documented. Okay, my book is loaded with pictures and census records. Like I'm not making this up. I am really, in America here. I'm four grandparents, four different places, four different races. I'm really BIPOC. And the history of the census, how America recorded all those mixtures. Um, I'm I was one drop Negro from 1952. One drop makes you the whole thing. And kind of got delivered. I think it was 2002 when the census. See, the history of American census, they've not known what to do with, you know, um, biracial, triracial mixtures and things up from the South. They haven't and immigration. Oh no, it's a really hot mess. So what? There's a whole history of the census that how America has documented its socio-political drama of ethnicity
Mm.
and race. So in 2002, I think it was the first census where you could check more than two boxes. And so now proudly, you see back here, these are all my crazy people. I got,
Yep.
yeah, not illustrations. They're real. They were real. Okay, my ancestors. They're real. They're real. They're real. They're here, and they say, "Cheryl, tell our story." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to give you a picture. I'm going to give you a census record." And one of the most interesting documentations that I've collected is Denmark. Denmark released recently. Denmark is an agent in this. They released all their archives so people can
Okay.
find themselves. So the census records from Denmark have been released and in full. Now the trick was early in the project you couldn't read them because they were in
In Danish.
but there have been translation projects. There have been passport, U.S. passport. A lot of the community you could come to America. So the first passport projects. There are a lot of projects for you. I'm a part of the Caribbean Research Library in St. Thomas, which was very, very helpful in helping me track down all the records. I have a friend who is a U.S. Virgin Island historian, and Denmark released volumes of records. So I was able to track my family all the way, and I found a cousin, Afro Caribbean cousin, and launched up with him to find my tribe and my lineage from Accra, Ghana. See, I have Ghanaian DNA.
Hmm.
So this family historical work that I've done is all tracked. The oral traditions, the family trees that were given, I've been able to document everything plus my blood work, And um, Denmark released the archives, the census records. So I started collecting those census records in 2010, 11, 13. I published my first memoir in 2013, and I got all of my records then. And then the history of the graphics is interesting because Denmark released all of the runaway ads from the first Royal, I think it's Royal American or Royal Caribbean newspapers, um, the Saint Royal Croix, Saint Croix Gazette, what is the Royal Danish American Gazette newspapers. So the Broadway Hamilton. Okay,
Hmm.
these are the newspapers that documented all of this that's going on. And so the first place of graphics and photography and imagery, um, my friend took the release of the ads, runaway ads, and he made a
Yeah.
book,
Runaway Virgins.
Runaway Virgins. And these are runaway slave ads.
Oh, wow.
So you see, the slaves would be picked up from Ghana, Accra, brought into St. John's. So I have a nest of family in St. John's. And then from there, they would move either to St. Croix, St. Thomas. All of them, they were all, the reason the United States wanted those islands was they were refueling stations for
Hmm.
steamers. So you had, the Black African women were the coalers. They carried, so the mixed race women got up front. Okay. Oh my God. They were with the sales folks to make the white Europeans comfortable. The 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 black women, okay, that pure African now Caribbean women, they were coal ladies. They carried the coal,
Hmm.
okay, to the ships. And so anyway, this whole era, these are the first newspapers.
Hmm.
Okay. So in my decolonizing history, I know the canon. You can't
Hmm.
you can't be a designer without knowing the traditional Eurocentric canon. It's impossible. If you've studied in any top ranked design school, that Eurocentric canon, that's it.
That's
You can't be a designer without it. But my work in decolonizing is to let you know this same Caslon, look at it carefully. That same
yeah.
Caslon, the colonizers who in your history class canonical design history, they're focusing on Garamond and Caslon and little serifs and stuff, right?
Hmm.
They're developing the technology. And then I say, oh, by the way, people, your colonizer who's creating graphic design technology, the other business is stealing, buying, trading Africans, slaves. Oh, by the way.
And
And
you
so,
know,
so my history class starts with, oh, by the way, the colonizers were in the business of selling Africans. Hmm.
and I hope that's where, because I think you said earlier something like, well, design, teaching design hasn't really changed since you went to school. But I hope that that's the part that has changed or is changing, which is like the, oh, by the way, which I'm sure was not there so explicitly. You had to find your own path through it when you went through design school. That is now becoming explicit as well. It's not just an, oh, by the way. It's
It's now the way.
let's look at how that is all connected, right? It is transcontextual in that sense. It's not just one-sided Euro design story. There's a lot which the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we say, which all comes together and is expressed through design. And now the, oh, by the way,
It's
I hope.
it's now the way. And the tension is, see, because I've been in it so long,
Hmm.
the era of sociopolitical change and culture, the climate around the world, a lot of things now have pushed us to now dig me up. So it's like, Miller, you've been saying this. I said, I've been saying this a long time. I was prophetic. I said, we're going to be here. Now we're here. I just walked out. I'll give you an example. So I have a design class that I developed at University of Texas, Austin. I teach it at Howard University. It's undergirding at Art Center where I teach, and we now have it in this synchronous learning. You can now upload my course to your school, decolonizing graphic design from a Black perspective. It's not a Black perspective. In other words, you're going to learn Black history on top. You're going to learn my lecture about this. But the
Hmm.
point of the story is the point of the class is it's a writing class. It's a design criticism class, and the whole point is to get you to do your indigenous work. Where are you from? We need your stories. Okay. And this is how you document your aesthetic. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I just came from Pratt Institute's graduate communication design, one of their senior exhibits presentation, and a young Arab descent gentleman. I I was there to support one of my mentees, and her work is incredible. But I saw others as well, and this other gentleman um, is Arab, and he did a whole. Oh my God, I enjoyed it so much. Um, golf graphics, graphics. So he analyzed golf graphics, talking about how he's created design voice from his aesthetic. Golf graphics, you know golf graphics. You really do know them but when you do the scholarship
Yeah.
to put it together to say that this is an aesthetic, this is a design system. And my other my mentee, Taylor Brathwaite, she did she answered her thesis. She finished the question that um, Sylvia Harris, she was one of my peers, but unfortunately, she asked the question and died early. Is there a Black aesthetic? She did a full. I was one of her thesis readers, and I pushed her. I pushed her. I said, "You're gonna answer this, and you're gonna do it with scholarship." And her book is there answered is the name of the yes. There is a Black aesthetic. And so she analyzes everything up to the current, the current imagery books. I mean, I'm telling you, this is one thesis. These two works, um, out of 70 graduates, I saw the last group of maybe 20, 30 of them. These two spoke to the work that I'm doing. And the work that I'm doing is you must know Eurocentric design. There's no way of getting around this. Yeah, okay. But because of globalization, because of immigration, because you're here studying, because you're getting westernized, Euronized, and then you're going back. Okay, the mixtures now, we've got to be bilingual. Because I tell
Mm.
my kids, oh, you better be able to do Swiss or you're not working corporate America. But you just might be the one on the team who can reach into an acute area of the globe and have a sensibility to be on the design team to say, you there are nuances here we can't violate. And so I have a class I teach, branding for diversity. It's basically research with development of um, design assets.
Hmm.
The first thing we do is, and I might switch it up a little next in the fall. We analyze McDonald's. So
Okay.
we don't do any work until we do research, thorough research on McDonald's in the world as a brand. And I have learned so much. And the point of the exercise is McDonald's in the world does not look like McDonald's Times Square. And the countries that almost 3 years of students tackling the research of, I have learned so much about, one, McDonald's, and two, the kind of sensibility you
Mm.
have to have as a design leader and team member to go into uncomfortable markets.
Mm.
Okay, so McDonald's menus in India looks nothing like
Like in the
McDonald's.
US or Canada.
No. Okay. And so I pushed them to go find McDonald's in under every rock, in every cave. Don't bring me McDonald's downtown Washington, D.C. I want McDonald's. We've done some incredible Turkey, India, and sidebar places, Ghana. Woo, I have learned the menus, the uniforms, the
Mm.
colors, the architecture, how the sensibility of the culture McDonald, and then it's also a sensibility to the dominant culture as designers to be able to sit comfortably with people who don't look like you.
Mm.
So by the time you finish my class, um, I hope that I have boot camped you to be inclusive in your thinking that there are more in the world than the Germans and the Swiss. And may the Germans and the Swiss acknowledge that y'all not dominant anymore, because
Mm.
not because of design, but of the new practitioner
Hmm.
that's birthing. I sat in all of these lifetime achievement awards. I have sat on four. I've been in four graduations since pandemic. So receiving the honorary doctorates
Yeah.
of the Vermont College of Fine Arts, Maryland Institute College of Art, Rhode Island School of Design, and Pratt Institute. I have been a part of their graduations in order to receive awards. And I've sat next to the president on a dais and watched pandemic classes being called and the kids walking across the stage. And I see future designers of America. Guess what? They don't look like you.
Yeah, I was
Right,
gonna say,
right.
yeah.
They don't even look like me.
Mm.
Oh. Yeah, yeah. They don't look like me in identification. They look like me in racial mixture. But
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, is our community? Are we ready for this? Are we ready for the comprehensive population of Pan Asian designers, the Arabs, the Hispanic community? Comprehensive. And what's interesting about the Pan Asian, ooh, I teach at Art Center, That's my dominant population is the Pan Asian community. And when I say Pan Asian, we're Korean, Chinese, Japanese, Taiwanese, and then Asia has a sliding map: East Indian, um, and then they could be mixed. So I've had students who were Chinese and Mexican. So the parent,
Yeah.
mom is Chinese, dad is Mexican. Mom is Japanese, dad's Chinese. Okay, all right. Don't get nervous on me because I'm trying to tell you, this is like a petri tree. They're
Yeah.
birthing, okay, and they're birthing, and they're demanding, and the Hispanic community is like that too. They're pan Latinx, they're pan Hispanic, so they're border state. They're Mexican, Venezuelan, Guatemalan, first generation college mixed. They may have a mom that's Mexican, a dad that's Ecuadorian,
I mean,
two or three women, fish, two or three white folks, and one to no black folks. So you sit, you sit on a graduation from pandemic where they're playing catch up, and you sit in four major schools, and you sit and listen to the names that were called. Imagine with me now. Just imagine. I wish I could have a smile at me. Imagine I'm sitting. I'm looking out at the audience. The president is calling the names. Imagine all the kids I've seen graduate 2020 and make in virtually, I mean, in real space, catch up thousands in four schools. I sat and I watched Tomorrow's Future. And I said, oh my goodness, my industry that I know is not ready for these babies who are now here. And if we don't change hearts and minds, we're gonna have an issue. The dominant community is gonna have an issue. So I've seen the future by just winning awards. As Dr. Miller, can you come? Would you give a keynote? And I sit there and I've listened to four major school names. Can you imagine? And I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And I'm like, oh my God, Rhode Island, I went through years 21, 22. It must have been the same with Micah. So everybody, they were grand graduations for those that didn't come out. They didn't have graduation because of the pandemic. So you can imagine all the kids that I've seen and all the international students. Oh my goodness, we better be ready. We're not ready, sir. We're not
uh,
ready. And more are coming. More are coming.
the, if I try to answer your question, are we ready?
No.
The answer that would come would be if we're willing to let go of this idea that Eurocentric Western design is the summum of design and the best that could ever come out of, humans, and that our way of knowing and being is the best, that could ever come out of the human species. And this is very unconscious. People, I don't think, walk around thinking this consciously, but there is a layer underneath.
Yes.
And if we're able to let go of that, then sure, we're ready, because then we're open to other ways of knowing, of being, of designing. But the question is, are we really able and ready and at the stage that we can let go of that? Or is there going to be some sort of conscious, unconscious institutional pushback to this new generation
Mhm.
of designers in the way that they
Mhm.
express, conceive, visually paint, write, and design? I mean, there's going to be a lot of discomfort in the process.
Yeah.
That is for
And
sure.
you know what the discomfort's going to be at the end of the line? If you don't grow,
Well,
neither will your stock market grow. You're going to lose money.
well, that might make
Yeah,
some
right.
people grow.
Yes, the pivot is going to be, it's going to hit the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's going to hit the bottom line because the next generation, listen, my, listen, they're thinking in these classes and stuff. The projects that my courses are allowing the students to develop and write about, they're brandless. Like brandless is no more logo. I'm like,
Mm.
okay,
Oh.
okay. So you want to do brandless? Okay. Racist colors. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. All right. I'm with you. They see things differently.
Mm.
Okay. And so they're going to start producing and changing the stock market. I'm sorry. So we can sit with the old landmark and rot at the cemetery, if you will. But I'm in the land of the living, and I got to keep on. I told you I've been with this. I've been with this since Magic Markers, and we're going to have to reconcile ourselves
Mm.
to AI. We have to reconcile ourselves to Meta. We're going to have to reconcile ourselves because I've seen a pivotal technological shift that changed the world. I've lived through it. Ask me which one that was.
Which one was that?
When I had to take everything on my pay stub out of my studio out and bring those Macintosh Apple computers in my office. It wiped out New York City. It wiped out New York City, never to return. Do you know the difference between the paradigm shift and a sea change? Do you know the difference
No.
between? Okay, okay, I might have to send you to the dictionary with that. Forget the paradigm shift. This is not. We're not talking about paradigm shift. We're talking about sea change. Sea change is when is gone. When it's gone, the change. When the change makes it go, done.
Just
Gone. No more. Sea change. New York hit a sea change with the drop of Macintosh. And if you couldn't keep up, that was to buy the machines, learn the technology. Everything was gone. Typesetting, houses, gone. Airbrush studios, gone. Even the delivery services that would hustle. The only thing delivering now is Uber Eats and Grubhub food. Because the internet made you could send your files. I
so
had the wherewithal. I had the wherewithal. I pulled up every analog piece of equipment and put the Macintosh in. And so now, like I'm working with the museums now, I have an installation. I have the first Macintoshes. I have all the like I just showed you. I just showed you my Adobe. I showed you. I showed you my
your original Adobe pen.
my original rapidograph. Oh, when rapidograph came, that was high end. The rapidograph. Okay, so please listen.
But so what you're saying is that, if my understanding is correct, with globalization, with so my wife, for example, is Russian. We live in Germany. My brother's married to a Brazilian woman. They live in the UK. So my nieces speak Oxford
Oh,
English and Brazilian Portuguese, for example, and U.S., Canada, and the world through its globalization. The next generation of designers is catering to themselves in terms of the next generation of consumers. And if organizations don't not only embrace, but I mean, it's a sea change. If they don't get on the boat, is the really wrong expression. If they don't get on board, yeah, now,
wow.
yeah, and they only have people like me, for example, yeah, so white, I have a mixed background, but generally middle-aged white man
Oh
who's
yeah, I
or
went to
white
school with
woman.
all of you all. You're the only one I went to school with.
But if I'm still designing or I'm designing for the next generation, the chance is that we're not going to be meeting their understanding of the world today through our design because we don't know what that experience is like. We don't have that kind of background and understanding. So it's going to hit the bottom line, and it's a lot of companies are not going to be around.
So what I've found is that collaborative professorships are what's working for me.
Hmm.
So um, I've been with Leslie Art and Design. I've been with Arts Center in a collaborative way. So I've been partnered. This works because the dominant can't do it by itself, and I would rather not do it by myself. Okay. So I can teach what you can teach because you all taught me. You all don't know what I know. I mean, I can teach the whole thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm also relational.
Mm.
So a part of my work is like, so at Art Center, I celebrate Tracy Schiffman. We teach a publication. She's a renowned publication designer in North America, out of New York.
Okay.
And we teach, most generous woman, um, completely is in it for the students, and has been generous to let me teach with her. We're both New York publication designers. Um, and my collaborative space and time in the class has made a remarkable, meaning not awesome, but a remarkable outcome. The works. Each student is required to produce a 64-page book. And if you want the results, you can talk to Sean Adams at Art Center and see what is the difference. Cheryl Miller showing up with Tracy. What's the difference we see in the kids? One, we're allowing them to find their voice. I have learned so much about the world by the
Mm.
books that we have allowed our scholars to design. I have learned so much, um, things that maybe they couldn't publish where they came from, areas that they never thought was important storytelling. Um, and they learn the tenets of how to design and print and produce a book. Our holding our hand together has really produced in that in this particular course,
Mm-hmm.
um, a cadre of young book and publication designers, if that's what they want to proceed in, um, that can do a book anywhere for anyone. Um, and there's not one book that is flush left, rag right, Helvetica, and medical blue type. Not never, not one, not one. And the it's so and the nuances are so interesting. The way they see my Korean students, the way they see the page, and the Asian students, the way they see the page. Oh, why in the world would I want to squeeze them into a grid that won't let them breathe? And then they have the challenge of really now going back with Western and European nuances embraced with what they brought with a new degree of some kind of, we don't know what that is. What I'm telling you is it's dynamic.
Mm.
And if the marketplace resists employing us, I'm even telling them to be aggressive on your on your portfolio pages, that
Yep.
to put that can you mastered this through Zoom. So that means that you have a skill set to be a design leader and practitioner with people around the world, because you can collaborate in the technology and you don't have to show up.
Mm.
You just have to upload. I said, you better use that skill set. You may never show up at corporate headquarters. You might need to. They just need to show up in your bank account. That's it. And the place that we can help is to embrace, relax, don't resist, dominant, and find value in the new practitioner rising. right in front of us. They're all grown up, and they're gonna be on your LinkedIn. They're gonna be on your Indeed.
My TikTok, on my Instagram.
And the TikTok, you're gonna find the younger ones hustling. They have new ways of making money,
Oh yeah.
and they're not even resisting anymore. They'll take you out. They'll call you out. So they'll
Well, to
call you
certain,
out. If
they don't need the intermediaries anymore,
no,
in a
no,
way, right? With the social media platforms, they can cater to themselves in a sense of they don't need to go through a design studio in order to be published and so on and so forth, right? So in that
but
sense.
there's respect for that.
Hmm.
If you can cut the grade, if you can make the grade,
Hmm.
there's respect for that. Okay,
Yeah,
so be
but I just mean it allows them to not have to cater to,
yeah,
let's say, a dominant design view of what's right or wrong if they have platforms in which they can
yes,
confirm that there's an audience out there for
yes,
them and that people like their design. And then they can approach, and hopefully companies will approach them,
yes,
but then they can approach
yes.
companies and say, look, I didn't need to start by going through you to
That's
confirm that this resonates,
that's right.
but it does. And if you're a smart company, you probably want to work with people who know what
That's right.
resonates, yeah, within our own
That's
community.
right. Excellent. That's it. But if we resist, because I sit on both sides. I'm with the dominant culture as well.
Hmm.
I'm a North American graphic designer. Okay, um, and now academician. So I'm trying to make my colleagues comfortable. Just let me give you a heads up. This is going to be in your email box. This is going to be on your uploads from HR. Do something different. Don't keep hiring yourself.
Mm.
We do. So if you have 5 hires to make, all right, go ahead, make 4 that look like you. But be brave and find the best out of somebody that doesn't look like you, that's competitive. May the most competitive designer for whatever it is that you want use the best. Just don't do you all over again. It'll be okay. They're well trained. These guys are, I'm told you, I- I've seen thousands. I'm like, oh my God, I've sat for hours and watching the president calling names and seeing young kids. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, look at this. This is the future. No one has seen this vantage point like I have. I've sat at graduations through recovery pandemic graduations of the 4 top design schools in North America. Do you know how many names and kids I've seen? You know, shaking hand, getting a diploma, undergrad and graduate school, coming to finally be able to get their certificate diploma from pandemic. And I look at the future designers of America and I'm like, when are we ready for this? Do they all have opportunity? Are they staying here? Are they going home? What's going to happen? I can't be I can't be a caretaker for all of them, but I'm like, oh my God, this is disruptive because they're done. They're cooked. They're finished. They're qualified. They're good. They're astute. They're
Well,
competitive.
this may be provocative, not very provocative, but were people ready for you when you came through design school?
No, no.
Like,
I
so,
called out everybody. I'm like, I called out my first professor. I'm like, what are you doing? I took him to the dean.
I'm glad that all these students have you as the pioneering teacher who's telling them to pioneer based on your own experience
Yeah.
of having
Yeah.
to do it.
Listen, you gotta get the book, read the book. Please promote it. Put the link put the link under put
Absolutely.
the link under the
The
description. Okay.
the link will be in the
Oh,
description
yeah.
for those in North America. I'll link to the publisher. Yeah, that you suggested. For those outside of North
Oh,
America,
yeah,
I'll
please.
link
Yeah,
to.
just please. I
Yeah,
want and my heart's desire, if there's anybody's out there listening, I'm looking for a couple of sponsors so that I can purchase boxes. So when I do my tours, I can give the boxes away. I don't want the kids or anybody to be worried about Apple Pay. So if I could get some sponsors to go to Chronicle, get a Chronicle account and order them by the boxes for every engagement, so I can just spend time talking with the students and young designers. And e- Even the old ones. I won't. I gotta wait for a few of them to die before I can tell you the truth. We have an information act that after you die, then I can talk. So I got a few. I'm like, oh, I sat next to one recently. I said, you didn't hire me. He was an older gentleman. I'm like, you didn't hire me. I can't, so I have so many stories, and so the book is loaded with stories and pictures not seen, graphic design artifacts unseen, and the archival work. I have to shout out to all those who helped me. I had a ET. I'm teaching. I'm a distinguished senior design lecturer. I think it is at University of Texas Austin Design, and I was given the E.T. Doty professorship, which in essence they asked me not to teach, and they paid me to do my research
Oh, wow.
for a
Well,
year.
well deserved,
Yeah.
obviously.
And so I'm very proud. I took the fellowship. They gave me a graduate student, um, and I was able to do all my research, um, create the manuscript, and create the book proposal for 2 books. So the first one, both of them are now in publishing, and the first one releases October. It's in pre-order right now. You can get it, and I'm telling everybody you want first edition of this book because there's no other book like this, because there's no other Cheryl Miller, there's no other story, and I've been doing this since I was 3 years old when they were marching with Martin Luther King. I've been at this. And so I'm just happy that I'm still happy. Uh,
Still very happy, very vibrant, very energetic,
yeah,
and you're not done, obviously,
no, and so
with your inspiration and I guess now your desire to support and help the next generation
yeah,
of designers.
so they have to be received, they have to be qualified, and so I'm thinking about how to do that. It's been my legacy and work advocacy has been word of mouth, that it's like a snowball that just started churning, to this place of design voice. I'm not great with like design recognition. I have a voice, and people always ask me, well, what are you going to say now? I'm not going to say anything I haven't already said. It's just everybody's listening, because I think also everybody's listening because they see that the geography has changed, and it's going to change more when it hits the balance sheet. It will eventually. And
No,
so to be
we
prepared,
see it now.
yeah,
We see it now with social media, right? I mean, the ability for people to organize and to say, well, we're not happy with this company because of what they may have designed or published or marketed or whatnot, and then flip like that in terms of the bottom line.
look, in,
And that's not going to
no,
change. It's going to.
in my African American community, because I got so many communities now, to which I really love. I love 2002. I can check all my boxes. Okay, so sometimes I'm Filipino, sometimes I'm Native American, whatever you want me to be. And I told them, as long as you don't call me grandma, granny, abuela, okay, just call. They all call me auntie. I said, don't put me. I'm nobody's mother. I'm nobody's grandmother. Just call me auntie, and I'll wind me up, and I keep going. um, but uh, yeah, I just want us to be received. Everybody relax. And I want my community to be competitive. You can't be in this business without. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't been competitive. And so my designing now is new space. It's academic space, it's welcoming space, it's community space. Designers is much broader than when I started. If you got a good logo and brochure, you were designing. Okay, design is so expansive now,
Hmm.
and so my practice has expanded into design curriculum, my courses, my writing. If I don't write, for me, I have to write everything I know before I go to glory. Okay, so and I don't write just fairy tales and oral tradition. Everything, if you see something online, it's all footnoted. I leave with intentionality. I leave posts on LinkedIn and
Mhm.
Instagram and YouTube lectures and clips, because all those now are credible Chicago style ways of citation. You can pick up things that I've said. So,
Oh, very nice.
yeah, so studying me, I'm not out there playing, making friends. I got enough friends. That's not what we're doing. We are leaving a trail for future researchers to be able to write this story, document this story, give you tidbits, give you citations, footnotes, um, attributions that can create history and scholarship for for at least my community, and that's been a problem. My community, our history has not been documented, and trade publishing has not been a friend until this past season. 4 or 5 major scholars were published. Um, and their books are doing well by major publishers: Princeton Architectural, MIT, Princeton Press, University Press. Um, but when I talk to my current students, why all of a sudden Black scholars? I said, well, first off, it takes a lifetime to become a PhD. So if you back into how long it takes, you've got to be really good for scholarship to be published. So if you take that excellence and you figure out how long it took, then you'll understand why, it might have taken a good 10, 15 years for one book to develop from a writer who just got their PhD. It took a lifetime to do that, to be able to be qualified for a trade. It's taken me 50 years for a trade publisher to pick up my work. It's not the first time I've tried to get a book published. I make books, okay? Okay. And my first books, nobody would publish me. I made it myself. I'm not self-published. I make books. That was one of the things,
Yeah.
yeah, I design them and make them and send them to the book manufacturer and get them in boxes. I'm like, okay, all right. So, if it's taken me 50 years,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, So then my inspiration is, will you all go to grad school? We need professors of all of these ethnicities. We need we need Black professors. We need Hispanic professors. We need Asian we need an assortment of professors. You cannot teach design without a graduate degree. Now you can do your PhD and stuff if you want to, you know, be Dory. Be like Dory. Dory is Stanford anthropologist PhD, first design dean of everything. I gotta give her right. You then okay, you do that. All right. But it starts with you can't even get on the runway without going to grad school.
Hmm.
So we have to be prepared. So my whole thing is I didn't get here because I wasn't willing to do the work. So let's talk about what is okay. And once I could compete and know I could do the work, then I had to roll up with some forklifts and some bulldozers to break down the door. I'm like, I paid too much of a price, okay, to be competitive, to have a door locked on me.
Hmm.
So that's where the practice and the advocacy. I had to I had to trailblaze. So imagine I'm walking through the woods with a machete. I gotta cut down this tree. I gotta cut down this marsh. I'm walking in order to get where I'm going. And now there's a trail behind me. But you can't the ones behind me can't be any less less than the teacher or the master. I've done everything I could do. I'm a proponent of education. I've done everything I could do out of my era to be most competitive. You got to run this race. I don't care what designer you are. You got to run it. And
Hmm.
now the threat is the dominant. I hate to inform you, the privilege, the privilege of the dominant community,
Hmm.
okay, is no better than worse than what I write about in my book and in my articles. The systemic racist practices that have kept first the African American designer away, and now if they want to be kept away, the whole wide world of everybody else doing design, the systemic practice is to do everything you can do to eliminate the competition. So when I begin to talk to my community about why we're underrepresented, why nobody sees us, why we're in the third percent, I'm like, man, we've been here all the way from getting off the boat in Africa. And I write that and I show you, I document it, I have pictures, I have footnotes. And then I tell you, well, this is what happened. The minute the slave got freed, the white man got all upset, and his wife got upset. Are you really going to let this slave take food off our table because now he's your competition? I'll say that one again. Imagine the white man in the South
Mm-hmm.
that's got a print shop. The slaves are now free, and he was trained.
And
He was trained in your shop.
can
And
design
can
and
design
better than you can.
better than you can, and figure out.
But
He brought the woodcut. You didn't figure out the woodcut. He brought the woodcut.
yeah,
Okay, okay. So now he's your competition, and you come home, and your wife says to you, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do? We got children to feed. What are you going to do?
well,
How
and
you going to protect that?
yeah,
Okay, Eric, how you going to protect that? Okay, so imagine, just put yourself back there, where all of a sudden, all of
yeah,
the slave artisans were released, and now are your competition, and they've been working. Wait, they've been working in your shop for you to make money. And then when you figured out you could make money on them, you didn't do anything. You didn't keep up with it. And now your wife is saying, Eric, uh, you just, and the reason they ran away is that they could run away. I found so many slave runaway ads. One in particular that I lecture about, his name is Anthony. Anthony was a pressman, and he knew typography, and he ran away, and they ran after him looking for him. And why was he so important? Let me tell you why he's so important. One, he could produce letters and sell them to say, okay, friends, you're free. So he could make letters, release letters. He could make everything that he was making where he was working. Now his master is running all over the Maryland looking for him, from North Carolina to Maryland. He's looking for him. He's a threat. He's going to kill him if he finds him. So what has happened is you've got a tribe that's moving faster and quicker and more competitive because of the intolerance to the resistance of being
mm,
inclusive, a legacy of being exclusive. We've been,
mm-hmm.
and don't let civil rights fool you. Don't let civil rights fool you. Civil rights has made things equal, but not equitable. They can let you
Yeah.
in, but that doesn't mean you're going to make any money.
Mm. Doesn't mean you'll be included even if you're let in.
That's right. So it's better to kind of relax. Call Dory and myself in. We'll help you. Dory's got her practice. I've got mine. Okay, but they're really two different things. Same cloth, two different ends. Okay, we're gonna be your experts. Okay, we make friends. Our friends are your friends.
Mm,
Okay, we're here to help. We're here to help so that we can ease on down the road with this. And you know what? This is business, so we can make some money. Come- it's the truth. I keep telling my kids, this is not fine arts. This is business, and now it's global business.
no, it's global.
It's global. And now design is in some ethereal space that really only Gen Z knows what it is. They really,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, my kids from Art Center are so futuristic. I have to sit back and I'm like, this is what you see? I'm like, I'm not going to get in your way with this project because you're going to show me. You're going to show me what you see for tomorrow.
Hmm.
Okay? Art Center in particular, the students have different, I teach across the country. It's crazy, but I teach across the country. And on Mondays, I start at Howard University. I teach the African American community. In the afternoon, I teach at Texas, University of Austin, Texas, creative services, design and creative technology. All those students, those students are incredibly curious. So they're looking for answers to questions we don't think to ask. That's a designer right there. That group, those kids are curious. They are asking questions, looking for answers to questions we don't even think to ask.
So we can't even conceptualize what the world may be in the future in the same way that they can. Not even
We
close.
can't.
There's those concepts are not in my head. I didn't grow up in that
No,
environment. Um,
no. And
the not on the global environment, the social media environment, the technology environment, the linguistic environment. We did not. I did not grow up, even though I'm Canadian and I grew up in a quasi multicultural, let's say, environment. I can't even conceive, as you say, the questions that they're trying to answer. I would never even think of the
and
questions.
so Texas, they are answering questions that nobody thinks to ask. The Art Center kids, they see, they see. Do you know the Jetson cartoon?
Yes, of course, I remember the Jetsons.
Okay, tell me what's not real now in the Jetson cartoon. You know, you're looking at me and you watch. How much longer do we have? But Dr. Phillip, you're looking at
Oh,
and
no, no,
we're
no.
looking at each other. This is Jetsonian here, right?
True.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
I mean, there is. I mean, there are scooters. They don't fly, but quasi. The individual scooters that we can go everyone
Oh yeah,
around.
and
Some fly.
trust me. Joby and a couple of other partnerships, they've got those circular helicopters going around. Listen, the, my art center kids, they are they're futuristic into seeing the not even the products, but the problems. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, that's going to be a problem. That and so I let them go. I'm like, okay, well, go ahead and do your presentation. Like, they're going to show me, they're going to teach me. Because they see things out into the future. And I'm like, you know, future colors are racist. I'm like, okay. Future future behaviors in the metaverse, ethics and all kinds of stuff way out. And my assignment is to not get in their way and tell them, well, that doesn't look Swiss. That's my assignment. Cheryl, shut up, get in the corner, and let that mid-century stuff go, and let these young scholars
Mm.
show you what they see. It's taken 40, 50 years for my community to see what I saw as a young woman. So sit back and love the new scholar.
Mm.
Let them feel comfortable wherever they've come from, and let them feel that their stories and their future practice is what we need and what we want and is valued. If we can love the change and work together, it's going to be good, Eric. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And
I mean, this
call
is.
Dory and call myself. You know, there's plenty of work. There's plenty of keynotes. There's plenty of encouragement. We're on the road with this decolonization. She's got a broader perspective. She's an anthropologist, but I'm specifically see. I don't go out of my lane. I don't make up stuff. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a communications designer. Okay, if it's something that's got a storyteller business, however, the technology leads it out into the hologram. Okay, that's what that's what Cheryl Miller does. She is a trained back in the day commercial artist. That guess what? It has moved. The technology has moved. I don't know what the name will be. Okay, I'm doing the same thing. I know my assignment. You have to know your work. You have to know your assignment, and I'm different. So where we have, like I said, we're the same cloth, different ends. Okay. Um, I only know. I know she's brilliant. I don't know everything that Dory does. Okay, but I know we're the same cloth, different ends. And the only thing I can do is talk to my specialty. I'm a graphic design historian. I'm a graphic designer, and I've been in the technology since wooden T squares and charcoal.
Um, Dr. Cheryl Miller, first of all, thank you for taking me and the listeners along this journey of yourself as a person and also like just sort of opening up to we have no idea what's coming.
No.
Yeah, and how, I mean, I think beautiful and interesting and partly scary for all of us that is, and it's normal for it to be all of those things, but that there are people like yourself and people like Dory and others who can support all of us in industries along this journey, in organizations, in academia. I think the listeners can find you, you said, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram. So I will link to all of that, and I will link to your book. I'm aware of our time because everyone has a busy schedule.
Yeah.
One last question. I like to ask my guests to follow sort of the breadcrumb, yeah, the trail.
Mhm.
Um, in my interest in understanding why it is that we think the way we think as human beings, is there anyone you would send me to say, Eric, go talk to this person, as someone who will just, yeah, like you did today, which will just open up a world that I wasn't aware of and will, yeah, just fulfill my curiosity in the next iteration of understanding us as human beings in our journeys?
Oh.
Is there, I mean, I'm sure you know a lot of people, but in where you are at the moment in your context, does anyone come to mind?
Um. y- yes. Um. I want to acknowledge everyone who's either been on the trail of advocacy, to which there's so many, um, or the allies who have actually opened up opportunity. I think a voice that is representative of, I have several, so it's hard to say who I would refer you to, but because I've had so many beautiful allies that I didn't know were really there.
Hmm,
Okay. So I wouldn't want to ignore, I think we're, because I'm in academics, I think talking to Assistant Dean Doreen Lorenzo
okay.
from University of Texas, Austin uh, Design and Creative Technologies. I think she would be a good one in that, as I understand the UT story, three alumni w- wrote a letter that was a clarion call for diversity and change. And Doreen has taken action. She was one of the first in my life to, there were two in particular, two women in particular that took action. And maybe you can interview them separately. Okay. Well, I give you two referrals. Okay. Um, Doreen Lorenzo took action and has transformed and broadened and made my work integral there. And she has a perspective, um, an unconditional perspective to broaden all of it for a new demographic. So she's done it. She in essence has been inspired by the sages. She's heard the call and she did
Well,
something about it because she had the power base to to create transformation. I like to call it transformation and growth, okay, versus change.
mm,
Professor Christina Sansone, yeah, Lamore Sansone, um, would be the other one who can really give you an insight to this new practitioner and what they're experiencing, um, and has gone off to get her doctoral work to ratify her theories. Um, and she's been a design educator for for years, but she brought me in as a thesis. Um, Everybody has done this collaborative, invited me to work, you know, and so having her is a witness to this, um, listening to her voice. Um, and these are educators. She brought me in and she can tell you the result. I can't tell you, it's like you call in a sous chef, call Cheryl. She stays a while. I can't tell you how it's going to taste, but sit down and eat. Okay. She can kind of, she's taken action. And then Sean Adams at Art Center, um, he can bear witness to um, the embrace of diversity, and if anything, made life better over there because I've stopped through. They can tell you if anything has changed, if there's anything for the students. Um, these three are active academicians who are transforming.
Hmm.
They're
Well,
transforming unconditionally, and I think their voice is whatever they have to say because they stand on the dominant side that open the door that says, "Well, okay, we get it. Let's do something about it." They're true allies. So, and I believe that they will give you whatever the results are without me emailing, "Oh, Eric's gonna call you." I really think they have a witness to their own story of why it's been important to embrace new.
and I think that's really important. I mean, for myself, I get so much out of these conversations. I mean, part of the reason I started this channel and this podcast is completely selfish to have these great conversations and to grow and transform from it. But of course, I know a large part of my audience demographically will look like me, will have similar backgrounds. So I really appreciate, the chance to speak to people who, for you, demonstrate what allyship, openness,
Yeah.
transformation, and collaboration, which is in the end, all these transformations, societal, this decolonization, as Dory says, I'm sure you say the same. It's us white people who has to do the work because we're the one we have to change ourselves and our systems, but we don't do it alone. We do it in
It's colla
collaboration.
I'm
So,
convinced it takes two of us together. I'm convinced of it because it's just so. We have to be partners. We have to be friends. You have to trust me, and I got to trust
mm.
you. That the dominant community has been. It's been. I'm like, oh my God. I walk with my eyes open. Wait, I walk and chew gum at the same time, and I sleep with my eyes open. I don't know. I don't know whether you're gonna love me or hate me. So I have to trust. I have to trust.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but no matter who hears these conversations, someone's heart will be changed
mm,
and mine to take action. And then someone is going to really, I don't care where you are in this story, you're going to see it's good business. Especially you're going to see it's good business. Okay. And then you know what happens, Eric? Then everybody calls me on LinkedIn. Dr. Miller, do you have like I have a search firm, but the ones who follow me are vetted in that most of the people that follow me, I accept them with intentionality. They're in my network, and but if you want a personal reference, you have to write me. Sure, you know anything? I'm like, no, I'm looking for the black designer too. I don't know, but my community, my networks, we're good people. We're just trying to make it, and do what we have to do, and use the gift of God. So grace is going to lead us. Grace in loving each other's journey and um, making it easy for us to get on down this road. We got to get on down this road. Everybody wants to make some money. Everything's costing more. In Europe, I've been in Europe. Oh my God, gasoline, $10 $10 a gallon, and I'm like, America's not far. It's like try to get gasoline and I just want to get my daddy's Cadillac. I mean, like really, we just want to live. Yeah. So I'm
Ah,
I'm really let me do a little housekeeping advertising. Okay.
absolutely, please do.
My book, pre-order, please. I don't know the publisher's run, but I can honestly tell you that um, you want it. It's a collector's item. It's got pictures and some conversation that is in no other design book. I am prophetically pronouncing it is the design book drop for fourth quarter, and I'm asking people to go ahead and pre-order so when it comes, you have it for Christmas. Order it for your conferences, for your little stuffer bags, for
Yeah.
your studio gifts. It really
It's good.
it's a
It's going to be a class requirement probably anyways in the
that's right.
future. So order it for your kids who are
That's
going to be
right,
in
it's on the
design.
syllabus. Um,
Hmm.
and also my class, the class that I have won 2 awards. I've won an award from Howard University for it. I teach it there, and the one that UT Austin allowed me to develop. It is asynchronous, and so it's in an e-learning platform. You can. My husband takes care of all my business affairs. If you want to license it and upload it, it goes. You can have the course. That's
Hmm.
you know is which is my mainstay, and I've got a textbook for that course coming out hopefully in January with another publisher. It was strictly a course book to the course.
Okay.
Um, and um, and then always for Europe and the globe, um, you can write me to, I Zoom lecture and keynote just like if I, went through London Heathrow. And I love it. My husband has been with me since um, we were 16, and he's been with me with this all the way, and he's a international businessman, so he always like, Cheryl, I'll take you, like to Europe. He says, I'll take you, and so we're always up for visiting, and so um we'll come, we always work it out, and it's for the students. It's for the students, so you can have the class, get the book, zoom me in.
Or meet you in person, have you as a keynote
Yeah,
speaker or as a
or write,
lecturer, guest
write.
lecturer.
People also want me to write, for their books and articles and things, and so we have that. And I just want, and it's all the same, pretty much. Um, I want the kids to have hope. I want the students to have hope. Is what drives me each and every day. If I can still be alive to tell the story, and it's just my back on a long flight. Somebody get Miss Miller. Did somebody crank her up? We getting ready to land. short, short of that, you know, I'm in great shape. God's been good to me. No meds, no anything. Just a cranky knee and a back that if I'm on a 6-hour flight to Greece just to give a lecture, it's like wind her up, give her some Tylenol, and she'll be good. She'll so give her some feta cheese and a steak, and she'll some lamb chops. She'll be good in Greece. Just wind her up. So I love you, Eric, and I thank you, and I have to thank Dory for referring me. This is what we used to do back in the day. Okay, we also have to be sharing and refer. And my studio in
Absolutely.
New York, everybody I gave work, and so I got a shout out to Dory, her book, her lectures. And like I said, we're the exact same cloth, different ends. And the only difference that I can see, we have the same love, the same drive, the same advocacy, the same desire for us all. I'm just a graphic designer, and I stay in my lane. She's all over, she's the dean of everything. So I leave that. I don't touch that. I'm just Professor Miller, and I teach graphic design over here.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Dr. Cheryl Miller. Thank you for your energy, your endurance over many, many years. You can feel, yeah, and people will hear your passion, your dedication, and your love, and your real
Oh,
desire
wow. That's just,
for all of us to have hope and to, yeah, at this moment, as we all see, to create a better world for all of us in the future. So,
yeah.
thank you so much. I will link to everything. I encourage everyone to pre-order, to look up your courses. I will link to everything. Um, and I'm sure we'll be in
Yeah,
touch. Thank
and
you
the
very
and the
much for your
yeah,
time
and the
today.
easiest way is I message me on LinkedIn. Okay. All
Okay.
right. Thank you, my love.